Hi guys, I'm Turtle.
And I'm Bear. And this is Old Souls Travel.
We're actually going to be traveling all the way around the world in the next 5 years to over 85 countries. Well, anyway, follow us.
Literally, follow us.
Yeah,
Follow,
that's good.
subscribe.
All right, cheers.
Come on.
Go. You can tell he like guys, because all the women are in clothes and all the men are naked. On these like perpendicular angles here, and they'd be east and west.
Herculaneum, super cool. Loved it there. I could talk about it for hours. And what I thought was really cool about that was Pompeii Herculaneum, Cruise Alaska. You know, those were both places that we had been to, and that they were tied for 11. So it just kind of worked with the way our system works. Our next one's also a tie. And the first one is another place we've been to.
Yeah, we've been doing a good job knocking off these like right in the like 10 to 12
right.
on our list. And
which is awesome.
This one's actually number 6 on my list, and so Yellowstone. Yellowstone is absolutely amazing. I actually like Yosemite a little bit better, even though that was 20-something on my list. But it might have been the time that we went there and it was less crowded and he was 4 years old. And if you can believe it, probably a little cuter than he is right now. And we just kind of had the place more to ourselves.
Right.
Yellowstone has a lot more to offer. You know, whether it's animals. How many animals do you remember seeing at Yellowstone?
So there were bisons and wolves and bears.
Oh my. There were a lot of things there. We had a really good time. And if you ever follow the yellow brick road over to Yellowstone, I would suggest the shoulder season. As amazing as it was, there was a lot of traffic. There were a lot of people at all the main places. And when we got to some of the smaller prismatic springs and some of the smaller geysers, I think that was the best. I know you have a really strong opinion about Old Faithful.
Yeah, so I think part of the problem with Old Faithful is I kind of hyped it up too much. You see all the pictures and you hear about it and you're like, oh, Old Faithful, it's so amazing, it's like the highest geyser, whatever, right? But then we went, and granted we didn't go at the peak time because the crowds would have been insane to go at like the time where it's the highest. But we went and we saw it and it was cool, whatever, got a picture with the sign as you see right here. But it really just wasn't that cool to me, right?
And the guy who was pushing the button behind the curtain, we really had to ignore him. But
pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. It's been all Wizard of Oz today.
It was all Wizard of Oz all the time, and there were no scarecrows, but it still was amazing. I really like the beaver and the otter and some of the little things.
Yeah.
Being able to get close to nature.
Right.
But sometimes too close for comfort. But yeah, selfies with the bisons are better to do in passing, I would suppose. But we did get a little too close though, if I have to admit it. But I blame that on them. It was a walkway. You're not supposed to walk the
no, we
walkway.
were just walking on the walkway.
But I mean, it was awesome, and that's a number 9 for us. And the next one is a number 9 that we haven't been to and don't even have planned at this point.
No, not at this point.
It's very difficult to get to. It is the furthest island from a mainland or another civilization in the entire world.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Rapa Nui.
Rapa Nui.
Or if we want to anglicize it even further, Easter Island, because it was discovered on Easter or something like that.
I hear that's where the Easter Bunny is from.
I think so.
Yeah.
You know, that's the only animal that probably lives there anymore since there's no more trees. It actually is, it's a little bit sad, I think, when you talk about it from an ecological standpoint, because these people came in, they reached the populations of thousands, and all the trees go away and they start to have less fish. And most of the archaeologists now blame that on their most famous inhabitant and having to move them.
Right.
And of course, I'm talking about the
Dum Dum Give Me Gum Gum.
Yes, Dum Dum Give Me Gum Gum, otherwise known as.
Otherwise known as the Moai, which is this really impressive statues that are really tall and they're really cool. And the Natural History Museum, they have a head of one of them. That's definitely the main attraction to go there. And when I put it on my list, I don't know, probably like 7 years ago, that was the main attraction, is to go and see the Moai, go and see the Dum Dum Give Me Gum Gum.
And it still is. It's kind of cool. I mean, it's got beautiful cliff sides.
Right.
And of course, there's waves, and the food is improving as they start farming it and planting a few more trees. But it really isn't the picture of sustainability. So definitely you can learn a lesson while you're there about what happens if we have just way too many people and we cut down all of our trees so we can roll big statues with giant eyes around. So hopefully we won't do that again in the future. Maybe we learned something from the Moai. And moving on in our top 10 to number 8, we have the Great Wall, which 4,000 miles of a wall.
Yeah, I think it's something like 4,500 miles if you put it all together, which is insane. There actually was this belief for a while. They've disproven it since, but they thought you could actually see it from space.
I always thought that.
Yeah, so what I've read is that you could potentially see it from space, but because the material is stone, you can't really tell the difference from that high up.
Right.
But if it was like lava rock or something, if it was made of a different material, you could potentially see it.
Right, if they would have painted it all red, you might see a line
Maybe.
from space.
Yeah.
Maybe. But everybody goes to the same places.
Yeah, that's true.
Right, there's like 6 of them.
Right.
We're gonna kind of go to one of the same places when we go to Beijing in 2025. But I'm looking more forward to the Wild Wall section.
Oh yeah. Did you know that some of those areas that are like the Wild Wall section, they're like really old. Like they date back to older than 200 BCE, which is just insane.
Right, so while you have your dynasty of semi-civilization, or
Right.
probably for that time, big-time civilization down here, you got supposed barbarians riding around on their Mongolian horses up here, and they kind of scary. And so you put up a big wall and you have people stand there and hope that it works, and eventually it doesn't work anyway. And so definitely the Mongols intimidated them.
Oh yeah, and I'm kind of glad they did. I mean, it's kind of messed up, but I'm glad that they did because it just looks awesome. This really cool, old, impressive wall with those awesome mountains as the background is just awesome, and I absolutely want to go to the Wild Wall section and stay with the farmers and go on the long hikes to go and see those areas where there aren't as many people, because that's usually the problem with some of these cool, famous places. Like this is one of the wonders, right? One of the
it's one of the modern wonders of the world.
Right.
But that confuses me because you told me how long ago it was built.
Right.
Right. So maybe it's because we were so Eurocentric in our writing of history, because that was there when our next one was up.
Right.
And so our next one is Giza, and it's supposedly the last of the ancient wonders of the world. And every archaeologist wants to go to Giza.
Yeah, I want to go to Giza. I'm not an archaeologist.
Right, if you're not familiar with Giza, then just look at the videos and probably
Come on. Most people know Giza.
I would assume so, but did they know that the Great Pyramid isn't the one that looks the biggest if you take a picture of it from back? Yeah, so the Great Pyramid is the biggest pyramid,
Right.
but his son was like, I gotta be bigger than Dad's. But he had to make his pyramid higher than Dad's, but he couldn't make it bigger because he wasn't quite as affluent maybe, or he didn't live as long. But so his actually sits higher because he was smart enough to build it on a plateau that sits next to his dad's. I really like the Sphinx. I really like all the pictures of people kissing the Sphinx. I think that's kind of fun, right? Its nose is out of the way, you know, so it makes for a heck of a selfie. But if you don't know about Egypt, go read something about it and just go out there. Another thing I think really is cool is that there are no hieroglyphs in the Great Pyramid. It's the only one I know of.
That's crazy. I mean, you think Egyptians, you think hieroglyphs.
Right.
You think Egyptians, you think Great Pyramids. But the Great Pyramid, there's no hieroglyphs in it?
Right. And then it's built around this giant marble sarcophagus that's super amazing, right?
Yeah.
It won't fit in through the passageways that go down to it.
Okay.
So they had to put it in place and then find out how to build around it. And some of these are like 50-ton rocks.
Wow.
And so props to their engineers, really ridiculous, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing it.
Absolutely.
But we have to move on to number 7. Now I know we said that you can't see the Great Wall from space, but you can see the Great Barrier Reef. And so this will be our only one you can see from space, now that he ruined that for me. And Great Barrier Reef is really, really high on his. As a matter of fact, it's going to make his top 5 sock tattoo.
Yeah, I have a plan for my tattoos on my right leg, the top 5 of my bucket list to be a tattoo, and it makes it, and there's a big reason for it. It's my number 4. It is like underwater paradise. It's incredible. The amount of different aquatic life, like they have so many different kinds of fish, there's so many different kinds of coral, so many colors, and it just looks like a diver's and snorkeler's paradise.
At least for now, right? Because it's all
Yeah, at least for now.
We don't have this one scheduled, and that kind of breaks my heart. It's another expensive one.
Right.
And we're trying to get our bang for our buck as we go along. But I do think that there may be a point where we just say, F it all, and that becomes our next trip. Because if we keep having the bleaching that they've had the last few years there, we may never get the chance to go out there. And we really like snorkeling, and we really like diving, and this looks like the premier place to do it. So stay tuned, might change. Right now it's not in the schedule, and we have our schedule out till 2026.
Right.
But it really looks like a wonderful place, and I know Brendon's itching to get his tattoo done, and he'll be itching after.
I'll be itching afterwards too.
And then from there, we're gonna go on to another diving paradise. This is one that is scheduled, though. We have not been there yet. This is
we have
Bali. I know we talked about some stuff on Java earlier. We really like Indonesian culture, and we really like the beach, and we really like the surf.
Yep.
And so Indonesia gets a lot of play in here.
Okay.
But Bali is probably, especially if you count Nusa Penida and the Gilies as kind of part of Bali, because they're really easy to get to from there. This place looks just amazing. It's my number 4, and there's actually just so much to do.
Right.
I don't even know where to start. You start.
It's hard to start, honestly. I mean, you touched on the culture. I think that is the highlight of Bali for me, is the culture is just amazing. I would love for, if we went there, to have one of those famous Balinese weddings, because those look incredible. They have them for multiple days, and it just looks awesome, and it's so cool to see old cultures like that still carrying out their culture.
Right, even if it's,
routines.
everybody will argue that it's because it's commercial.
Yeah,
right. It's because you're gonna make money, but what I have to say about that is, whatever's clever, man. Because so many cultures are dying, if the reason that you keep your monkey dance alive is because somebody will pay you to do the monkey dance,
right,
well, at least we still have part of that mosaic that makes up the human culture. There's so many great things, I think, to do there in Bali, and I like Indonesian food. I like pretty much all the food in the South Pacific.
Yeah.
I don't think they get anywhere really gets a bum rap in the
It's
South
true, it's true,
Pacific.
it's true.
So we're gonna have really good food. There are plenty of archaeological sites.
Mm-hmm.
There's the rice terraces with swings on them so you can look cute. And man, Bali, big, nice list.
Yeah.
And we both have it really, really high, but not quite as high as our next one.
And our next one is Nepal, which we've been to.
Fist bump! That was supposed to be fist bump last week, but we're gonna embrace it. I'm gonna fist bump everyone.
Yeah, we
who's
just
been to
fist
Nepal.
bumping people.
And man, my favorite place in the entire world, not to live.
Right.
To live, it's the Dolomites. If you haven't been to the Dolomites, it didn't make the list. It would if we were writing it again. But Nepal, for someone who cares about culture and history, I said it last week, it'll blow your mind.
It really will.
The experiences we had our sins forgiven by the Buddhists and the Hindus in one ceremony at Muktanath, and that was amazing to see the devotion of these people and their willingness to run through 108 33-degree shower things and then dip themselves in 33-degree water and come out with the worst 7-Eleven frozen ice cream headache of all time.
Oh yeah, bad brain freeze.
We joined in and it was really rewarding.
It really was. It was really amazing. There was a lot of amazing cultural experiences there. When we went into that church and they were doing all the music and they had the little monks practicing their music, that was amazing.
Those little monks, and then the guys who were just there praying, they had swords down in front of them.
Yeah.
And so much devotion and so much love, and they live like it's the 1400s in some of these little villages. If you do it, we did the Annapurna circuit. All right, it was just trekking Nepal. It was on our bucket list. There's a bunch of other treks, and we're actually going back in 2026 to do some more. But we did the Annapurna circuit, and we took a lot of the alternate trails, and it got us off of the dusty thing. I will tell you, and we'll tell you more about this at a different time when we have more time. We almost died, and Brendon got like a whole shoulder tattoo. So we ended up hanging on a cliff in a rock slide, and we're trying to get across, and we're trying to, oh man. And this one thought he was a hero and was gonna go first, but he would have had to been knocked unconscious before that happened. So I did go across first. It was pretty much like, hey, if I fall, don't use that handhold, but thank God I didn't. That would have been pretty traumatic for him. We could go on forever.
Yeah, we really
about
could.
Nepal.
Nepal's
We'll be filming again in 2026.
Yeah.
But we got to move on.
Yep.
And our top three are all the same top three, just in a little bit different order.
Right.
With one exception. Number 3 is Galapagos.
Yep, number 3 is Galapagos. It's number 3 on my list. It's number 3 on your list. It's number 3 on Victoria's list.
Right, it should be number 3 on their list too.
Yeah, just make it number 3 on your
You
list.
can make it number 1 too if you're not an archaeologist, but number 3 is a good spot. I think.
Yeah, Galapagos just looks incredible. I mean, it's another one of those places that's expensive.
I have some budget hacks for that. According to Corey and the internet, you can fly to the Galapagos Islands. And so, if you do fly to the Galapagos Islands and you have plenty of time,
Right?
you really want to go on one of these cruises. You have 2 options to kind of budget do that. And when we go in 2025, we're going to have to do one of the budget options, and that's going to be, we're going to go on 2 or 3 little day trips. And that makes it a little bit more affordable. Or if you have a lot of time, what they say is you just go down and tell them if they've got an open spot that you'll pay half as much, and just stick to your guns and be ready to walk off, and sometimes you'll get it for half price.
But if you're on a budget, it's definitely one cool way to get out there, and you get to go see the iguanas and the finches. So you get to kind of be like Darwin. Study the finches. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. You gotta trap them and measure their beaks
Yeah.
and make sure that they're good.
I don't know about that, but invest in some good binoculars. And maybe you could write in a little notebook and pretend you're Darwin.
Or you could see some really, really cool, really, really ugly tortoises.
They're awesome.
What I'm really excited about are, there's sea turtles there, but
Right.
maybe more graceful ocean swimming is sea lions. When they're in the water, they're like little, I don't know, like when you see the birds in the sky and they're gliding on the water, or on the air, these guys are gliding in the water. And the only time they really get not graceful is when one of those killer whales comes around. But,
Yeah, I don't know. The sea lions look awesome, and I definitely would love to see like a family, little pups. That'd be awesome.
It'd be so cute.
Yeah. So really, really looking forward to Galapagos Islands for many different reasons. And now we got to move on to our top 2.
And you guys know
So
how I
excited.
said that I got to lead when we were crossing in Nepal or whatever. I'm gonna let Brendon lead right now because this is gonna be his number 1 pick.
Yeah,
overall.
I lost rock, paper, scissors. We were trying to decide which one would be number 2 and number 1.
And
So.
I chose grenade,
Yeah.
so he was screwed.
Cheater!
I will, just
Yeah.
like Tom Brady.
But anyways, number 2, I guess. Number 1 should be number 1 on everybody's list. Machu Picchu. It's another one of those places, it's hard to describe in words. It just kind of leaves you breathless. Just the amazing history, obviously. The Inca history is incredible. And then you got the beautiful mountains, the awesome architecture, and just the peacefulness. What I hear a lot about people who go to Machu Picchu is that there's almost this spiritual feeling, and I felt that a lot in Nepal. And it's just incredible. Even when there's a lot of people around, you still kind of feel that spiritual setting. It really is a really awesome place, and it is a special place. Everybody who goes there will agree.
So quick lesson, he just said phalanx twice. Machu Picchu is not the pronunciation, Brendon. What's the real pronunciation?
So I'm trying to train myself to say it correctly. So there's 2 C's in that word, right? So it's pronounced Machu Picchu. And I'll do one of the little phonetic spelling things up here.
Right, Picchu. It's very
Picchu.
important. It means big peak. The other
Yes.
one means big penis, Machu Picchu. Machu Picchu,
Yes.
big peak.
Correct.
And the surrounding hills look amazing. The Inca were just great. And llamas are cool.
Yeah, llamas.
Actually, I'm mispronouncing it now.
Llamas,
Llamas.
yes.
How do you say hairy, spitty animal? Like almost a llama. But they do make a really fun shirt. It says "Como se llama" and has a llama on it.
But one thing I will say about Machu Picchu is there's a lot of different ways to go there, right? You can take a train, and then you can take a bus, and you can get there. I absolutely believe that you need to hike it. And there's a couple of different hiking options. There's one that's like 4 days, it's not too bad. I personally would love to, and I might not be able to get to do it the first time, but at some point I want to do like the 11 to 12 day hike where you go and see 2 other archaeological sites and you get to see the amazing river, the super amazing mountains, and you get that feeling of seclusion, right? Because there's not nearly as many crowds when you're out hiking. So that's my advice to everyone. If you are up to it, if you have the physical tools to do so, you absolutely should do the hike.
But spend a couple of days in Cusco before, especially if you're from Florida like we are.
Yeah.
And now we've got my number 1. And I'm going to leave you in suspense for one more minute. I'm going to tell you that this is the first one that says check and then scheduled. So sometimes I go on places or go to places without these guys. And we were going to Nepal, and it was actually, here's another travel hack. It was cheaper to fly to Bangkok and then go to Nepal than to go to Nepal directly. A lot of times you can go to Bangkok and then Hanoi, you can go to Bangkok and then Bali, Bangkok and then Kuala Lumpur. But I did Bangkok, and I was like, well, if I'm gonna be in Bangkok,
Great.
I'm going over to Angkor Wat.
Oh yeah,
It would have been
absolutely.
easier to to go to Ayutthaya. We covered that earlier. But Angkor Wat was absolutely everything that I expected. There's so many different, completely different temple complexes over the hundreds of years. It's not, everybody sees just Angkor Wat or maybe sometimes Angkor Thom or maybe even Bayonne, which was my favorite with all the heads and everything.
Right.
And they think that's it. But when you go to some of the smaller ones, especially when you're an archaeologist and could drop a couple of names and get in there at 6 o'clock in the morning, you're actually probably going to enjoy those a little bit more because they're not crowded again.
Right.
It gets really crowded, especially with a lot of groups, and especially as the Chinese become more affluent and finally are traveling more. I liked the little ones a lot, but I still liked all the selfies with the big heads and things like that.
Right. Angkor Wat looks awesome. That's the reason it's my number 2. You pretty much touched on everything. One of the reasons that I like it is because, Thailand is right there. And I really want to make a trip where we go to Angkor Wat, we go to Ayutthaya, we go to one of the Buddhist monasteries and get a Sakyant tattoo.
Right, but you have to get all of the tattoos you want before you get a Sakyant, because if you do a Sakyant and you pick your tattoo, you didn't do a Sakyant.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to let them pick it. It just seems like such a really cool experience. And then it's another tattoo with stories. I like to have stories. All my tattoos have meaning and they have a story behind it. So that's really awesome.
And travel is about stories.
Right.
So that was so much fun.
Oh yeah.
I loved making the list, but it takes a whole lot of work, but sitting there and contemplating it and discussing why we picked it was something that I thought was really valuable. And what we really want to get across to you guys is to make a bucket list. You really need to make a bucket list no matter what your age is. Don't wait until you're sick to make a bucket list.
And hey guys, if you do make a bucket list, or if you already have a bucket list, put down in the comments maybe some of the things that we have in common or some of the things that you found from this video that you want to add to your bucket list. We love to see other travelers and their inspirations and to be inspirations for other travelers. That's like the whole reason we're making this channel. And this was, like you said, this was a lot of fun, and I hope you guys liked this video because we sure as hell did. And as always, find yourself on the journey.